Hey everyone. Hey Heath. I'm so excited to be here with you on this call today. And yeah, for those of you who don't know anything about us yet, we have been actually collaborating for more than a year behind the scenes, and we've been co-creating something really amazing for anyone who wants to create and publish their own card deck. And we're now
Yeah.
finally ready to launch this baby that we've been working on for such a long time and super excited. And so on this call, I just wanted to introduce you to my audience a little bit and for everyone to get to know us a little bit as well. And but I'd be really curious to hear more about your journey with card decks because you've been really successful with 4 decks so far that you've birthed into the world.
Yeah.
And
That's wild, huh?
Yeah,
Four
they're all
already?
they're all really amazing. I have one of them here. I really love the design of all
Yeah.
these decks, and you've been really successful with your Kickstarter campaign, so I want to talk about that a little bit as well. But um, before we dive into that, I would just love to hear a little bit more about how you got started on this journey, and maybe what was your first experience with card decks, and then how did that lead you to the inspiration to start creating your own?
It's a wild journey. There's probably very little ways I can put all of it into words, the kind of synchronicities that I've experienced over the past 10 years. But in short, there was a long period of my life that was extreme alcoholism, drug use. I had some really profound rock bottom moments where I kind of just felt like I rebirthed in a lot of ways. And that was not an easy thing, but it was very, very moving and transformative and the path that I trusted in and like where it took me in life. And so I wasn't a meditative person. I think I was always densely empathetic and creative since I was a child. But I was taught to stack the layers on and to, ignore that and go to school and get a boring type of degree, the ones that make more money or whatever. And I never found happiness. So it led me down that path. And, um, I never utilized any tools. The only thing I did have, I think, growing up that was really beneficial to me was nature. In essence, I could go into nature and be like completely absorbed by what felt like support in a lot of ways. And I wasn't sure that it could have been like metaphysical guidance or anything like that, but um, it just felt like it was cleansing, it was detoxing. I felt better every time I did it. And even if I was treating my mind and body terrible, I could be in nature and somehow I just felt better. Um, so when I made a transition out of like that kind of lifestyle and I quit my job and I sold everything I owned and I just moved into my car and went across the country, once I got to this kind of arriving point of like an early stage of the hero's journey, I started getting all of this kind of information, or what you could just say the tap of a muse almost. I think we all have channels in some capacity. It's just, are the layers that we have from society covering them up, or are they actually open for us to receive information? And are we listening to that information? And I just kept getting this like really uh, direct, like, you're going to make affirmation decks, like message. But to me, it was weird because I wasn't really into affirmations or anything that was like positive optimism, self-help at all. I used a lot of that to come out of that dark hole I was in, but that was really in the form of like quick meditations and quick affirmations. But I wasn't so deep into it that it was like actually guiding my life in a lot of ways. It was really just a spark. Um, but there was something about that like message that it felt like it wasn't an option for me. And it also felt exciting in a way of like, oh, this is a challenge and I have no idea what this is, but I'm going to go in that direction. So yeah, I started just, I always loved writing. I did a lot of poetry since I was a child and on. I didn't know how it would evolve. I had a dream as a child to become a writer. I never thought that was a possibility to do that full time. And so today when I reflect on that, it's like, wow, I'm actually writing for a living. And it's really fun. And like the creative process and the people I get to meet in the networking and it's incredible. And it didn't come in the form of books. It actually came in the form of card decks, which I never would have seen coming either. And so, yeah, I did a little meditation and I got that message and I just started writing the messages for the cards. I had no idea how I was going to do it, how I was going to bring it to life. I had no experience with um, publishing. I had done a journaling system up right around the point I started doing the cards. That was pretty successful. But it was literally just the mechanisms of, things that I do in the AM and PM to help me become a better person every day. And that was just stuff I learned from hundreds of people that I had interviewed all around the world that seemed to be happy and successful to me. So, um, yeah, I just started taking all those concepts and putting them into forms, which are kind of like little bits. Because with card decks, I believe they are sort of the new type of book for the modern human, as in our attention spans are shrinking, and not everyone, I mean, the majority of people don't, the attention span isn't going to get into reading, a 400-page book anymore. And each card is kind of like a summarization of a chapter in a lot of ways. And then you kind of get that like quick hit of information that you need to make a decision or to feel into the spirit. If you're talking about Oracle or Tarot or something, like there is actual spirit infused in that work, and you can feel it when the creators that make those, they have that source coming through into their project. Then when you're using it, you feel it yourself, and it can really have profound changes on your life. So that's where I started. I didn't know what I was doing. I just started writing down, okay, I'm going to do 60 cards, and each one of them is a little bit, and these are the bits that are coming out. A lot like your decks, like we pull them every morning at my altar with my baby. She pulls a card from your deck, and I love them. I love the messages and that channel that you have that comes through. It's very calming and meditative for me, and I can sense her like guiding to the exact card because I could feel the spirit that is infused in that card deck, and she just like goes right to the perfect card every single time. And then she eats it. She just shoves it in her mouth and starts eating it, and it's awesome because I have this whole pile of like half-eaten, cards, but they were all a special moment for me and my, little 6-month-old. So I think there's just so much joy in these things. Yeah.
I love that. And let me know if you ever need a new one when she's eaten
Yeah.
them all.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
it's cool. Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey, like once you maybe were done channeling the content for your cards and you were ready to take it to the next level and get your deck produced. In those early stages on your journey, what were some of the challenges that came up for you in terms of turning your idea into finished physical product, and how did you overcome those challenges?
There's quite a few of them. Money was a big one. I really had nothing at that time. I had quit my job and was trying to I was like doing online resale basically to support me. And that actually grew to be a pretty big operation that I was kind of systemizing. But there was a lot of really intense stuff happening when that message came through for me. Like I was engaged at the time, and my fiance like left me 1 month before the wedding. And it was the same. It was just like that was about a month after my dog, the love of my life dog, she just died at 7 years old on the same day that my grandfather died. And I lost that business that I had been working on for like a year at that point, all on one day, April 13th, 2017. Um, and I had to like really go into the depths of like what that meant emotionally, psychologically. Am I going to be embarrassed going crawling back to like where I came from and going to get a job that I was working when I was leaving? And I was like, I'm never coming back. And they're like, you'll be back. Yeah, they always come back, because I worked in like the concrete construction industry or whatever. But money was a big block for me at that point. In confidence, I never really made anything. I grew up a very shy wallflower, like introverted child. No real idea on how to market. I had good skill sets when it came to like using computers because I had been on it since I was a child. But I didn't go to school for that. I went to school for engineering, and it's like just such a different life path. Um, I didn't really have support in community in an entrepreneurial space, which I think was really important. Um, I was kind of impatient. There were a lot of blocks, right? There was so much going on there. And I think all of those things that I was lacking all showed up for me because I became open to them. And so the money aspect, I wasn't sure how I was going to do that, but that's what led me to doing Kickstarters, is because I was like, well, if I can't afford to pay a bunch of money up front to print all these decks that I don't even know if I'm going to be able to sell because I don't even have an audience and who's going to buy this and I don't know how to market, all those things. Um, I looked at that Kickstarter platform because my friend Bree, who I'm talking to later today, she had just done a Kickstarter coffee table book for like women entrepreneurs or something. And she was one of those entrepreneurs that I had interviewed on my podcast. And she raised like 50, maybe 9, 10, $15,000 or something. And I thought that was like the most incredible thing because like what a smart thing to do to put this project up and then find people to support it up front so that you can then take that money and then go print all the product instead of having to try to figure out how to buy it up front and then sell them and make your money back. So that was one, that money thing. That's kind of how that worked out. I gained confidence as I went because as I was writing each one of the cards, I was kind of sharing them with people to see their reactions. And that first deck I created was really kind of an aggressive, more masculine deck, but the whole point of it was to kind of help people that weren't so it was like an old version of me. I was talking to an old version of myself, somebody who was like not open at all to spirituality, metaphysics, positive inspiration, affirmations, any of the stuff that I had found to become very important for me as I transitioned my journey. I was basically like writing those topics, deep subjects, but in a very accessible language for people to kind of like with humor. Humor is a good way to do that. And jokes, humor, just keeping things really simple. So as I did that and was sharing those, then that whole problem with not having confidence around what I was writing started to go away because people were like, oh, this is actually really powerful for me, or this was really potent. And so I got confidence and I kept going, which again, another reason why I think if you have a community of people around you and you're sharing as you create, you can really get an idea of like what's beautiful, what's working. You can also get really good feedback. You don't want to take everyone's feedback because a lot of people will give you feedback, which I've had many, many times about how, what you're making isn't going to work, but actually trust yourself most of those times, right? Because it will. There's somebody else out there that it's for, and it's not for that particular person. But um, so that moved out of the way. And then as far as like the community goes, I started just being really intentful with going to like networking meetups and like getting out of my comfort zone and talking to people, which again was putting yourself around other people who were doing like-minded things. Nobody was making card decks, but I was around people that were writing books, starting businesses, traveling the world, other things that I was really enjoying, learning e-commerce, stuff like that. And um, even though I didn't have someone to ask questions about like how do you do this specifically with creating a card deck, there were a lot of people that I could talk to about, okay, well, how do you sell a product, or how do you put something into physical form? How do you manufacture this? How do you do all this while you're traveling the world, like, and not have to be in one place the whole time? And as that blossomed, I joined a group called Location Indie, which is still around today. I met some of my best friends that are still my best friends today. They're just a miraculous people through that. Went to a lot of meetups at the World Domination Summit in Portland, Oregon, because I was living there at the time, and there were just so many creatives there. That was run by Chris Guillebeau, who was he was I think the first person to travel to every country in the world by himself before the age of like 30 or 25 or something. So yeah, all those types of meetups were another way that I broke through that. And then on a personal level, what actually helped me be successful with all of it was I got really serious about how I was spending my time and my energy and my money. And I stopped getting belligerent, right? And I stopped saying yes to all of these things. And I don't want this to sound like you're not supposed to have fun or feel good, because I'm full, like always have fun, always feel good first. But there were decisions I had to make where it was like, if I'm serious and I want to go through this process, I have to commit to it long term. So I did. And I have to be able to sacrifice other things that I really loved to be able to spend the time to do it. So I basically I have this very brief system where I visualize, I write out all of my core values of like who I want to become in life, these kind of principles. Like I want to always lead with kindness could be a core value type of thing. And that's like the vision board for me. And then I align everything else I do underneath that. So other than the core values, every single day, I basically look at my long-term goals, my short-term goals, and then I align my daily actions with those. And all of that has to align with my core values. So I'll sit down, I'll take a note card out, I'll write the two things I'm going to do each day to move towards my short-term goals, which is usually like a 100-day period. And that's got to be in alignment with what my long-term goals are. Say, publish a card deck, right? Long-term goal takes a little bit longer than 100 days. And then that deck that I'm making has to be in alignment with what my core values are. And if you create kind of a quick roadmap for yourself like that, anything that doesn't fit into it, it's like, oh, actually, no, I don't really want to be doing that because it doesn't work. So that's how I broke through all the blockages up front, was just gaining that confidence and trusting myself and moving through that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an amazing story and a really great example of what's possible. Like even in the most impossible situations, if we really commit to something, and I think also when we're really following something that's coming from deep within our soul, and we just know that we have to do it, and we really trust that, and really put all of our energy and focus into it, then like miraculous things can happen, and the support just shows up. Um,
Yeah, Joseph Campbell has this. I'm a huge Joseph Campbell fan, like the hero with a thousand faces, and he has this principle that was kind of explained to me originally through one of my mentors, who's named Dave Lent. His story was unbelievable. He was doing all sorts of work with like Carlos Santana, Stephen Tobolowsky, all these really brilliant creative people. But he told me one time, like, basically, this isn't the exact words of Joseph Campbell, but you can look the quote up. But when you when you align yourself with that thing that truly excites you, there's like four things that automatically happen. I always forget the first one, but it's something like aligning. You start to actually feel that alignment with your bliss. You meet the people that you want to know, essentially, because the other ones kind of move out of the way because you're separating yourself from them and you're making space for the new people. Doors open for you that wouldn't open for anyone else, and doors open for you that wouldn't open before. And so like this is the path of following your bliss, right? It's, if you trust in it fully, then the right people will show up to help. The right tools do show up, but you have to put the effort in too. I mean, I don't personally, for me, I don't ever like to tell somebody what you should be doing, but I like to help everyone understand what it is that I've done and how it's helped me. And it has never really helped me just to sit and be like, this is my vision, and I'm going to say it over and over again for a year, and it's just going to manifest. I can do that, but I don't really manifest anything. But if I take action every day in alignment with that vision, then that's how it manifests. So um, you have to marry the two worlds, right? And I think it's not as hard as we think, but we make it so hard in our minds because of the monkey brain and the resistance. The momentum is everything, though.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's very much been my own experience too. I see it when I look back, and I've had some very similar experiences. And even now, right now, I feel like I'm in that kind of chapter of my life where I'm realigning everything. And even our collaboration actually feels a lot like that too. Just the way
Oh,
it fell
it's
into place, and especially how it's expanding now. It just feels
yeah,
like
that was
there's so
another
many.
synchronistic thing, right? I do meditation and it's like this, I'm gonna meet you, right? That was basically the message, is that your archetype is coming and I will meet you and we're gonna create this group. And then I met you like immediately after that. And yeah, what a cool thing.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was similar for me too. I first had the vision for this community project probably more than 2 years ago, and I immediately knew that I wasn't supposed to do it on my own. So I called in the right person, and maybe about half a year later, you
Yeah.
showed up, and then
Had I been that day, had I not sat down to do whatever the meditation was or to clear my mind, it doesn't have to be meditation, it could be anything. But had I not done that, I maybe would not have received that signal that you're sending out, and maybe we would have never met. So I think that's always what's so important about centering yourself is I think there's just these infinite signals coming in that could become something, and you get to choose which ones to pick. And you're never going to receive them if your antenna is closed down and you're, stuck absorbing television all day, or you know everyone has their vices. So um yeah, it's beautiful what can happen if you kind of open yourself up and lean into that.
Totally. And I think the aligned action piece is really important too. Like I feel it's not just about, putting in effort, but I think it's just the focus, and when we take energy from the things that are distracting us and maybe things that are not aligned, then we free up so much space. But I feel like especially when we're really in our integrity and just really following our truth, and there's like it takes so much courage, but there's so much that can happen. It feels like magic, but it's
Yeah.
I feel like I've really seen it as a pattern. Like it's been very reliable
Yeah.
in my life. Like I've seen it so many times. Um,
Once you know, and there's no going back.
exactly. Um, yeah, so one thing I wanted to ask you about, when you created your first deck, you started with a pretty small foundation. You probably didn't have a big following yet, I would imagine. Um, And yet you did really well with your first Kickstarters. So I'd be curious to know what exactly you did, or like what were some of the things that you put into place, or some actions that you took to kind of break through that barrier of not really having an audience yet to still being able to succeed on Kickstarter with your first deck. I can't remember exactly how much you raised, but I think you raised quite a bit more than maybe the average person would raise the first time. So, um,
Yeah, I think the goal was like, I think my goal was maybe 3,000 and we raised nine potentially. And that was all, I was so green. I had no idea. The way I leaned into it was I was going to interview a couple people that I knew that had done Kickstarters and ask them what they did. And I got a lot of really good advice on that, but all of it comes back to you got to line up people that are going to support your campaign. And it, because I had the illusion, like most people, it's like if you just put your product up on a crowdfunding site, then all the people that go to the site are just automatically going, like they're going to see it, and then maybe if they want it, they're going to fund it. But that's not the case. And today, it's not the case even more than ever. Back then, it might have been more like that because there was less people on there doing it. Um, but that does happen, right? If you can drive some people yourself with traffic and get a little bit of juice going, then you do people do start to see you because you're shown on the algorithm on higher pages and stuff like that. In the early stages, I had no idea. I had about maybe 100 people on an email list that I had from my podcast that I was doing before that. But it wasn't a reliable email list, right? And I had no idea if any of those people would support. I had launched my journal on Amazon, and I sold a couple thousand copies of that, and that was pretty remarkable for me, not having any experience either. And I was able to collect some emails from that, but I didn't really have much in there as far as like Amazon doesn't share any customer information with you. You're not allowed to contact your customer. It's very predatory. I have a lot to say about that, but um, so I couldn't really rely on that aspect either. So I asked people questions, and I got into basically I was like, this is going to have to be pretty manual for me. So I went back to the oldest sales method in the book, and that was like going through every single person in my phone, letting them know what I was doing, asking them if they had any friends that would be interested in what I was doing. And I just started like really keeping account of all the people that were replying. I was in Portland at the time too, so I did a lot of very like weird things. I printed samples of my cards and I went out in front of the biggest bookstore in Portland and I put a link to the Kickstarter pre-sale page on it. And I just handed out examples of cards for days, like hundreds and hundreds of cards to people. And that actually, I think, really did a little bit there. I mean, it was like, how can I just get a little bit here, a little bit there? The groups that I was involved with, like Location Indie, and I was doing some stuff with another group called The Unconventional Life. I was meeting some people in there that liked what I was making, and some of them had like smaller audiences. So I kind of like, was giving them decks ahead of time, sample decks, and was like, hey, if you like these and you don't mind sharing them when it goes live, I would really love that. And there were a couple people that did that too. And overall, all of that manual work was what fueled that first campaign for me. I wasn't doing anything that I did later on other campaigns, like running ads or getting on podcasts or getting interviewed. Like there's a whole, as you know, like there's a whole massive amount of different types of marketing you can do to drive traffic, whether it's for a Kickstarter or another type, a marketplace or anything that you're doing. which we talk a lot about in the Kickstarter course that we have in the group that we're building together. Um, but that first one was pretty manual for me. It was like there was even a point, Anna, where I'm pretty sure this might be why my original fiance left me, but I put I put on like whitey tighties and like a unicorn outfit and chugged like a gallon of milk on like a live. I mean, it's like thinking about who I was then versus now. I like got people onto a Zoom and basically like read cards and then chugged. I don't know why I was chugging milk. I don't even remember. Uh, Maybe it was just like a wow factor thing to get people to show up. Like, hey, if you show up, and then there was like maybe 20 or 30 people on there, but they thought it was like ridiculous and hilarious, and like most of them ended up funding that project. And 100 people on a Kickstarter can make, you can get $5,000 if you get 100 people to join your Kickstarter and pledge, say, like, $50 a piece or whatever. So 20 or 30 people, each one of them, like every single person counts when you're trying to hit a goal like that. And yeah, I did a lot of weird. It was weird, and it was also very in flow, and just it was a good experience. It was a good experience because when we hit the goal, it was like wow, and then we went on like another 5K, and that was when it was like, oh, this is a product that people actually really want. I probably didn't have to do the milk chugging and stuff like that, It was unnecessary.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you had fun.
Yeah.
Once you reached your goal with the Kickstarter and you got your deck produced, and basically that was the way you initially launched the deck, what was the journey like from getting the first decks out there to creating more of a long-term, consistent way of selling your deck and then maybe moving on to the next decks as well? Because I know for some people, for a lot of people, that can be a challenge too. Even for those who have established audiences. Initially, if we launch our existing audience, then pretty much all the people who want the deck, they get it. And then you need to reach new people and you need to put new systems or more other
Yeah.
systems into place for more consistent sales long term. So how did you manage that journey, and how did that unfold for you?
One of the big things that really helped in doing that first Kickstarter was that we were able to pre-buy more inventory than we owed to the people who supported it. So I still wasn't really sure what I was doing, and the whole process of creating a deck can be very complicated. And as you know, over the years of figuring it out yourself in parallel to like me figuring it out and my co-founder Jason figuring it out, like we spent so much time and money testing different things and just blowing money trying to figure out how to sell it or how to get it in someone else's hands. And so early on, it was like a big struggle for us, which again is why we're creating this deck and this community around decks, is because we don't want people to have to go through everything that we did. But one of the big things was that whole we had. Here's an example. Like say let's say you do a Kickstarter and you raise $5,000 on your Kickstarter, and you have 100, and let's say each deck that you sell is $30. It would take roughly 170 people to raise that $5,000 at $30 per deck, right? If I did the math right, I think that's about right. So let's say you have 170 people who all gave you $30 and you raise $5,000 for that deck. Well, $5,000 is actually enough to print 1,000 decks at $5 a unit delivered. So if you owe 170 to your backers, well, you still have, 830 decks left to be able to start your foundation with. And that's what happened was all of a sudden we had all these extra decks. And so instead of feeling the pressure of, oh, I not only do I need to spend money to figure out how to market, but I also don't have the product yet, and I have to spend money to get that, and I don't know which one to do first. It was really beneficial for me to be able to look at all that extra inventory and go, okay, like how do we sell this? And it wasn't an easy process, and it wasn't a quick process. Even to this day, I'm still figuring this out, right? And today we're somewhere around selling 50 decks a day, which is huge because I put all of my heart and intention into these decks, and like every person that gets one in their hand, it means the world to me. And back then it was just like, how do we sell one? How do we sell two? And the way that that transpired was I was learning a lot about selling on Amazon first. And so we put some of those extra decks on Amazon and got them selling there two, three, four a day. Um, and really kind of got stuck in that void for a while. I was learning other things, but I wasn't really sure if I was going to continue doing that. But I kept having that voice coming back, being like, no, you're not just making one deck, you're making multiple decks. But I was having a lot of hardships in my personal life, and my co-founder also he was pretty sick, and he was having a lot of hardships. And so it wasn't until maybe 2 whole years later and in that process, I had been slowly writing the second deck, um, where we came back together and we're like, okay, like let's be kind of serious about this next one. Let's see if this is going to work again. And if it does, we'll continue. And if it doesn't, maybe we'll switch paths or whatever. And so I started working on that second Kickstarter because the amount of revenue we were making from the first deck, it wasn't enough. It's not enough to support you. Like a lot of authors, even that are really famous who sell books, like their book sales alone could never support them. So they do other things like coaching and lifestyle and all these other things that can be involved with it. Your decks and your books can be in a massive authority piece for you to have to be able to make money in lots of different ways. But I honestly was like, well, I don't really believe that that's the only way. I think that it is possible to sell enough of these if you really commit long term. One day, I think you could get there, and if we keep learning, maybe we can get there. And so now that we're at that level of like selling 50 decks a day, it's like a very real reality that you can do this without having to, make money in all these other different ways or whatever. So we sold on Amazon a little bit. We launched that second Kickstarter. I did way more legwork up front on it. I really took it seriously. I got on, 7 or 8 bigger podcasts to get interviewed about the project and other things that I was doing in the internet, like kind of marketing world. And I had them all hold the podcasts for launch when the Kickstarter went live, set them up as affiliates. Um, I got with an ads company and we figured out a way to like set it up so that they could run ads, but they would only get paid out if they converted. Because I think there's a huge dangerous slope in the ads world where people want to charge you a bunch of money to run your ads, and it's even if they're not successful, you're just blowing money because most of the times they don't work. Um, and there was a lot of stress and anxiety behind it. I was like, I really feel like I'm doing so much work, and if this doesn't actually work, I don't, I'm, I was scared. There was a lot of fear and resistance coming up, and I was in Mexico when that second campaign launched. And I went down to the beach and was just like, okay, this is launching tomorrow. There's nothing else I can really do. I have to let go of all my expectations because I had so many. I had all these expectations of like, and fears around what would happen if it wasn't successful. Like, and my goal was just to hit $20,000 in sales. And I was like, man, if I can just get $20,000, it's going to change everything. And I'll keep going. Like, I'll make another one after that or whatever. Well, we launched it and it just it went bananas. We were almost at $20,000 within the first 2 days, and it ended up raising $168,000. It was actually over 170 after we did like the post campaign upsell stuff. But it was a weird moment because I was like walking around in Mexico, like looking at my phone every once in a while, like another $10,000, another 10,000, like it was 2,700 people that ended up backing that campaign. And it allowed us to print, I believe, almost 8,000 decks at the time. We didn't even have to spend all the money that we raised on deck printing. We could have printed way more than 8,000 with that money. But it like really set us up to then move into the next phase. And that was around the time that I got serious and was like, okay, well, let's get a real website up. And we were using WooCommerce and it was a mess. And we switched to Shopify and started learning about Shopify, which has been a godsend because like that's where we're selling all of our decks every day. And a lot of weird stuff still happening with Amazon. So Shopify doesn't steal your customer information. You have all your access to your customer information. Everything's in your hand. I think it's super user friendly. I love that company. So I've been on like a really big kick to learning about that platform ever since that second campaign. And yeah, we've run 2 other campaigns since that were not as successful as the second one. The second one was the most it was the highest funded affirmation deck of all time on Kickstarter. It was one of the highest funded decks of all time. There are some tarot decks that have done over 1 million, which is nuts.
Wow.
There are some Oracle decks that have gotten really close. So I buy a majority of my decks through other creators on Kickstarter because I'm so fascinated by that creative process. There's so many different benefits of running a Kickstarter that we haven't even talked about here, but um, for both the consumer and the person creating. And yeah, I think that's where I got it kind of felt like another nudge from the universe. Like, if you don't think this is the way, let me show you. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I got to trust in this longer, right? And now I'm so glad I did because everything is just, it feels so much in sync and fun. And
Yeah, I mean that's huge, and you've come such a long way. And um,
long is the right word. If you really want to be successful, like you can't, there are viral explosions of luck out there or just maybe synchronicity in some way. Um, but the reality is, I've spent every day, for 10 years doing these things in alignment with my vision. And like, I'm serious about staying focused on that path. And I wouldn't be here if I hadn't done that. And so that persistence is everything. And I think the way that you stay persistent longer is by community, which is why we're both so excited about putting that, this debt community together. Because that momentum and that support is everything. It keeps you going. And when you have someone to bounce ideas off of and you can exchange questions and you can share parts of the decks you're working on, it lights me up because we never had that. And I know how helpful it would have been after all that I've been through with this process.
yeah, I'm totally feeling the same way. I mean,
Yeah.
we just onboarded our first members, and we have a small group in there right now, but I'm already feeling the momentum so much, even for myself, my own creative journey, and just getting inspired by each other, people sharing their ideas and decks that they've already created. And yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like it feels so like such a supportive space, just knowing that if we ever have a question, then we can get support from other people who have other skill sets and
I
other.
know I'm already doing it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe one more question that I wanted to ask you about the Kickstarter campaigns. Would you say there are certain types of decks or projects that tend to do better on Kickstarter, or um, is there maybe a specific type of person who's a better fit for doing Kickstarter campaigns, and maybe certain things that you need to have in place too so that you can succeed on Kickstarter versus maybe certain scenarios where you would say it would be better to launch the deck in a different way. Um, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, I think there are specific types of products that do better on Kickstarter. I think card decks are one of them. You can just get on Kickstarter and browse. You see a lot of card decks. Maybe the algorithm feeds me a lot of them. I mean, that's part of it too. But there's a lot of card decks and art-based stuff. There's films. It's really a creative hub. It's like anything that you're doing authentically as a creative, it would probably be a good fit for Kickstarter because the whole purpose of the site is to support creators in creative endeavors. There's also a lot of tech products that do really well there. And that was kind of one of the initial things that blew Kickstarter up in the beginning. My friend Tom actually was one of the very first giant successful Kickstarters. I didn't meet him until later after I had done a couple of my campaigns. But he runs a company called Studio Neat, and they were launching these kind of like these really high tech pens and journals and stuff for tech people, higher price point stuff, and like $100 box cutter, basically, like things like that. And so if you get on there and you look around, like it's really fascinating because you're going to see a lot of stuff that you want to support because it's like really innovative. Most of the times, there are things that they don't exist already, right? So it's like it's not like somebody is like, here's the cheese grater I made and it looks exactly like all the other cheese graters. It's always some sort of like brand new feature. If it is an existing product, it's an existing product with a new, really awesome feature. But when it comes to decks, like every deck is so unique in itself that if you tell the story of yourself as a creative alongside of like the intention of why you're doing the project and things like that, people buy in. I mean, they want to be a part of that. They want to support you authentically, and they don't really. It's not like going in on Amazon and just blindly buying something. You don't know who made it, where it came from. It's so I think that there's kind of a cult following of crowdfunding sites of these creative people who really like to support other individual creatives. So if you're one of those people, then I think it's a really good platform to explore. I also believe that it is better. The question around like, is it good for some people and others is a hard one because you're always going to be more successful with it if you set yourself up for success with it. Like I did on my first campaign. I mean, like the amount of time and energy I spent putting into it and all the manual work, was it worth $8,000? Probably not. But look where I am now because I did that. So I made a lot of sacrifices then. That I make money long term off of it? Oh yeah. But did I make money on the campaign itself and like have a bunch of money to live off of in the moment? No. You know what I mean? So um I think you have to really be willing to show up and set up everything to drive the amount of traffic that you want. You also don't want to think like you don't want to get like that big-eyed candy syndrome of like I'm going to try to raise $30,000 and this is going to hit, right? Because I think you have to start really where you're at. And if you don't have a big email address, if you don't have 300 people that have committed to you that they're going to support your campaign, and even if you have 300 that have committed, some of them won't, in the moment, um, then you don't want to set your goal at $15,000, right? Because with Kickstarter, you only get the money if you hit your goal. So there's no shame in setting a two, three, $4,000 goal and then finding, 100 people that you've had conversations about your product with leading up to the campaign, so that when you launch, you're going to hit your goal. You got to set yourself up for success, which is another reason why I think kind of our community, the bigger it gets and the more we help each other, we're all going to be supporting each other's decks. I know that's going to be a thing. And then we can all help promote it to our other friends and stuff like that. And I see a path where that becomes a really powerful thing for helping, hit those initial smaller goals for first time projects. Now, if you have a bigger audience, you've been doing other things, say you're a podcaster and you have a bunch of email addresses, or you're already into e-commerce in some way, or you're an author and you have several books out and you already have an audience with your books, it's a little bit easier to hit those goals and maybe you can raise them a little bit higher. There are freak show things that happen where products can go viral. And with the day and age of TikTok and some of these other social media platforms that younger kids are using, like it's totally viable that somebody could find your product and make a video and it could get in front of lots of people and all of a sudden you have a big surge of people backing your project. But the reality like is you have to prepare yourself for it just like you would anything else. It can be very discouraging if you don't, because you could have a really incredible product and you put it up on Kickstarter and nobody funds it because they don't see it. And then all of a sudden you think nobody wants your product, you get discouraged and you never create anything ever again. And that happens. And it's a horrible thing to have happen because it's actually not the truth, right? There is somebody who could really benefit from your product. And if you're in a group like the one that we're building as well, like you get to bounce that stuff off people before the campaigns are even set up. You get to share, kind of, I'm excited to do that, right? And it's something I've done with my audience over time is like if we make a deck, I'm sending out surveys. Here's a design prototype, here's another one. Which one do you like better? Like do you like this type of feel? Do you like these types of animations? Do you like these drawings, these color palettes, like all of it. And then I get people voting back. And it's funny because a lot of times it'll be 50% like this and 50% like that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll go with my intuition now. But other times it's like 90% this way, 10% this way. And I tweak the product and I make it better. So yeah, there's a lot there. And hopefully that answered your question in its whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thank you for sharing all those thoughts. And I think you brought up something really interesting and important there. I know I've done that, where I created a product and then I didn't have the confidence within myself, or I kind of started doubting myself, and then I didn't put it out there enough. Or maybe there are certain other things, like even, when I launched my first deck, actually looking back, I feel like I did really well, but that back then I just had kind of this filter,
Yeah.
you know, that I was looking through, and then I kind of got this idea that I wasn't doing well enough, and then that kind
Yeah,
of
we all do that.
backfired because then I
You
took
bail,
I
right?
kind of made the wrong decisions then after that because I felt like I wasn't doing well enough, and then but now looking back is actually, I started small and I actually did really well, and if I'd kept going in that direction, I think I would have actually been able to grow a lot bigger. I mean, there are a lot of reasons
Yeah, no
why
doubt.
maybe that wasn't the right path at that time, but yeah, I think that's a really big and important piece there. And yeah, I agree with you. I think just having that supportive community too, and I mean, there's just so much there that I mean, supporting each other in the sense that we can lift each other up and inspire each other and encourage each other, but also through the very practical ways of, and it's already happening. Like, we can connect with each other on social media and share each other's decks and all that. There's
Yeah,
so much.
this is the sample of the new Beasties deck, and there were so many things in here that were created because of the audience, like playing back and forth with people in our community, not the one that we're creating right now because it wasn't ready yet, but my audience essentially with Rage Create. And that deck you showed earlier, the Sweetest Affirmations 3, like all of the color pastels on the back of the white cards and the box, if you see the pastels there, that was somebody's idea from our audience. So like we didn't have those colors. It was just a white box, and I shared it and I was like, something feels like it's missing. And then I don't even know who it was because I wish if they hear this, they would reach out. Um, Somebody made that suggestion. They didn't put their email address into the form. And like these designs, they all take a life of their own on because you get to play with others. And I spent so much time with the feel of this deck in my hand, how it feels in the hand, and getting people to give me their opinions when they're holding the cards, and to get the perfect shuffle, the perfect buttery feeling when you're spreading it out, and all that stuff. Like some of us really nerd and geek out about, and other people could care less. It's like, but I think people that are really into creating decks or playing with decks, like you always have certain decks that are so special for you, right? And you go back to them over and over again because of the way it feels, the way you feel connected to the spirit of it, um, or the tool of it, right? Because not all decks are Oracle Tarot. Like there's so many other decks that you could create, and I have both that kind of like engineering brain and creative brain, and so I'm like, oh man, a deck of like prompts for writers sounds really cool, and a deck of pulling recipes sounds really cool or whatever, and also animal spirit decks are really cool, and I just am very excited about all of them. But this
Yeah.
here, I was going to show you is like the inside of this box. It took us so long to get this right because it just kept coming back and looking and feeling cheap. And the ribbon and everything, and like that whole process it's a pain in the ass if you don't know what you're doing. But like when you get into the materials and boxes and types of finishes, and like I've asked you so many questions about this stuff because I didn't know a lot of the answers, right? And you helped me get to the perfect finish and feel of these cards in a lot of ways. And so I think that's where us coming together, both of our experience separately, it really creates a massive realm of experience to share,
Yeah, that's something
which
I'm
is
really
exciting.
excited about. Like
Yeah.
I've probably helped my clients create over 60 decks now. And the this part, like producing the deck, I mean designing the deck, that's such a fun process too, but actually then putting it into a finished physical product, and there's so many different options to choose from. Like I
Yeah.
really love your decks. I feel they're such high quality. I mean, the design is so beautiful, but also I can tell you've put a lot of love and intention into choosing the right finishes and I mean everything.
Yeah.
And I love the colors of this one too. I think this one is my favorite so far. I don't have the
It's
Beasties deck yet.
yeah, yeah. It was the third affirmation deck is my favorite. The Beasties is my favorite overall, though. They're not out yet. But the design on that deck is unbelievable. Like I'm not saying that to like from an ego perspective, is that I'm mesmerized. We were like there's this girl on our team, Jocelyn. She doesn't really like recognition. I like to put her name on. I try to put her name everywhere that I can. But her it's like I do a lot of the creative directing and I go back and forth. So I write every card and then I work with her and she always conceptualizes it perfectly. And I just I feel like there was kind of if you believe in the sort of thing, like a soul contract of her and I to work together and to create all these different decks. And another exciting thing about the community is like all the different people's skill sets in there. Like when Mona, she's lino cut carving those tarot cards, and I'm like, how do you do that? That is incredible. Like that is so fascinating to me. You're hand carving all of these, like what? And that's the kind of story that if you put it on Kickstarter, it's like, oh, this is really cool. Or that girl's felt, that felt deck that was shared in the group the other day where she made all those tarot cards out of felt and then like picturized them and then made them into a deck. And it's like, that's so cool. Like,
Yeah, it's such a
yeah,
genius idea.
it is. It's so unique and yeah, it's good.
Did you want to pull a card from your Beasties deck?
Oh, I can.
I thought it'd be fun to pull some cards before we end this call.
I'll pull one, but there could be some spice in it. I'm
That's
sure the perfect
okay.
one will find us, right?
It, we'll always get the perfect one.
I got that. This is so funny because this is the same card that we just pulled in the group.
Oh wow,
The,
yeah.
the helmeted basilisk.
I love
This
this
is the
one.
this is the Jesus lizard. This is the one that keeps coming up for me over and over again.
I love the
Do you want me to
colors in
read
this
it?
deck. Sure, go
We
ahead.
might or might not have time for that. I'll read the main section and not the rest. So the helmeted basilisk morphs you into a living prism of creative light. Just like a prism, you can refract neutral light into a brilliant spectrum of colors. The great Rick Rubin teaches, in a prism, a single beam of light enters and is broken into an array of colors. The self, too, is a prism. Neutral events enter and are transformed into a spectrum of feelings, thoughts, and sensations. All of this information is processed distinctively by each aspect of the self, reflecting light in its own way and emitting different shades of art. Each ray of daily life passes through the crystal of your consciousness and emerges as a radiant spectrum of creativity. Some of these expressions become explosions of creative brilliance, and others may fizzle into the camouflage ooze of the swamp, both equally important to the grand scheme of the creative life cycle. What colors are you reflecting, and do they align with the experiences you desire? Your journey is not just about seeing the colors, it's about becoming them. How will you bend the light today? So that's the main section, and then there's supporting sections in all of this, which you may or may not be able to see. But um, there's a did you know section, which is really cool. It's kind of factual, and yeah, it ends with an affirmation on the end. So
I love your writing too. I feel I can tell that you put a lot of love and effort into writing the content for these decks too. Also the
I'm quite obsessive.
affirmation cards. I mean,
Yeah,
I love how they're made. Like there's some really short and simple messages in the front, but then there's more on the backs. And I just feel like, yeah, kind of what you're reflecting back to me too when you share how you experience working with my cards. I always feel like they just speak to my soul and I always pull
yeah,
the right one and it's exactly what I need to hear in this moment. And then they change. Like if I feel like depending on the situation or the day, I can read the same message and it feels totally
yeah. It
different.
changes.
I
Yeah,
get a different message. So it's so
even for
perfect.
me, like writing, writing or you could say channeling them because a lot of times I just like let whatever it is coming through, and I'm like, whoa, that's weird. Especially with this Beasties deck, it was like the animals were pouring through me, and I was in Guatemala sitting there like feeling very kind of stuck, and all of a sudden it just like I opened up, and this like the lion came through, the jaguar, it was like all these really cool. Actually, the basilisk came through down there too. Um, I'm gonna pull a card from your deck. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah, that sounds great.
Also, on these, there's a hidden bumblebee on every card.
Oh
And on
yeah.
the affirmation decks, there's hidden gremlins. Those are like the those little things that you can play with your audience in deck creating. Like they go a long way in the long run. I'm gonna grab your deck.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I love that idea so much. Um, I've been having a lot of fun looking for the gremlins. I think in the I have all three of the affirmation decks, and I think in the second one they're a little bit easier to find. But here. like
Yeah,
this
we made
card. I
them
have no
bigger
idea where it
than
is.
one because some people were like, I can't find them anywhere. And we realized with the print, sometimes things don't show up the same after you print them, right? When you screen print versus a digital print sample. And so you don't really know until after you print. It's like, oh, that didn't show up the way that I thought it was going to, right? You're always kind of like when those first real print, screen prints come through, it's always kind of like a nervous, oh, I hope this looks good because I just ordered 1,000 copies or whatever. And
Yeah,
usually it
I
looks
always find them
better.
eventually.
Yeah, usually it looks better than what I think they're gonna look like. So, all right. So your
Yeah.
cards have this spacey. This is like where I find my mind is always at. This like glary. This is my mind. Probably all of our minds. And this is the card. Oh, we gotta. I want you to read it because you have such a meditative voice. But it's
Okay.
card 85. You'd have to like really sort to find it. I can
85.
read it
Which
for
one
you.
is it?
Oh, it's
Open your
open your
heart.
heart. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's 142 cards, so it might take me a while
Do
to
you want
find
me?
it.
I can read it if
Um,
you.
maybe I'll find it.
I was just gonna add on if you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, or you're not, right? Like as you every single deck that gets out into the world adds value in some capacity. And so something that I always reminded myself from the beginning when I felt like nobody was seeing or getting anything that I was creating is just that it is happening, right? And like I would walk around and put cards on people's windshield wipers just to like little positive boosts of energy. I would leave them all the coffee shops, yoga studios, like everywhere. And if you do that over a long period of time, like people really do start to like find them and interact and they're like, what's this? And then they go look up where it came from because they're curious, like, this is mysterious. Why did this show up for me right now? And then they want to know like who it was that made it. And then maybe they go on to buy one for themselves or their friends. And so getting over that creative block, common thought that we all have of like we're not good enough, it there's if you lean in with play and excitement, which again is easier to do with a community of people who are being playful and exciting, and you just don't care. It's like, no, I'm just going to do this because I know that it's a beneficial thing and the right people are going to find it. I think it's really helpful. And also, when someone says something positive to you about your work as creatives, a lot of times we like push it away. We're like, no, we're not good enough. Like, thank you, but I don't believe that about myself. Like, try to really receive it. And I save all of them and put them on like a board that I can look at when I feel really, because I do go through stages of like deep depression and I'll come out and I just look at the board and I'm like, oh yeah, like this doesn't have to be dark, right? Like I can feel better and better and better. And like there are some people who can reflect that to me here on this board. So yeah, just a thought that I had.
Yeah, I love that. And I've been doing something similar. I have, still like a couple boxes here of decks. Well, I only have
Yeah.
one with me now. The other box I have is in my mom's storage unit in BC, and then the rest is in a warehouse in the United States. But um, when I was preparing for my move, I was downsizing, and then every time I brought stuff to the thrift store, I felt inspired to put a few of my decks in there just for people who might want them.
Yeah,
Sometimes it just feels so good to just
it is.
put
Yeah.
them somewhere as a surprise. And so, yeah, I might actually do that. Even just leave them in random places, or I always have some with me when I'm traveling too. And sometimes I just meet people, like it feels really random, but I know like these are people I'm supposed to connect with. And
Yeah, if you
it's,
play with the world plays with you. If you give gifts, gifts are returned to you. It's all a big cycle.
I always feel like we always have medicine for each other too. Maybe my deck is the exact medicine they need right now, but they
Well,
also
it's
always
it
have
is for
something for
me.
me as well. Yeah. Okay, so I got the card. It's
Yeah.
number 85, Open Your Heart, and it's about receiving love, forgiveness, and compassion. And so the focus of these cards, when I wrote these, I was very much on a journey of healing and exploring relationships and healing a lot of my relationship patterns as well. That was, I think, about 12 years ago now when I started creating these. And So the focus of this card is very much on that, but maybe after I read it, I'll feel into what else might come through, because there's always some deeper meanings too that might just come through in the moment. So receive whatever resonates, and whatever feels like it is for you right now. So if you have been straining to attract love, this card indicates that the love you seek is already there, but you cannot see it because you're searching in the wrong places. There is someone close to you who truly loves you. Allow yourself to see the love that is there for you now. Forgive yourself and others for what went wrong in the past, and open yourself to the magic that will heal and bless you all. And there's a magic prayer at the bottom, which is kind of like an affirmation as well. I see the love within myself and others. Yeah, so I definitely feel
You know,
this.
this is the card I drew 2 days ago. I didn't draw one today, but this was the last card I drew. I drew it randomly again. I didn't even realize that when I pulled the heart, but like I sent that message to several people after I drew it. It's powerful. I felt a lot of like I thought about a lot of people from my past that I was like really close with that I'm not so close with anymore. And it was like, oh, there's a reason. Like I just reconnected with them basically, prompted that. So it's cool.
I've definitely been on a journey with this lately too. Just feel like letting go of a lot of patterns and attachments, and creating new like space for new connections as well. But I feel like there's been a lot of creating space in my heart, like letting go of
Yeah.
all that clutter, and really even just being open to a new quality of connecting with the people that we already know as well. But I feel like also in connection with the community that we've been creating, I feel like there's so much of that in there. Like it really feels like such a beautiful, nurturing space, and just a really
Yep.
connected group.
It's all
And
happening.
so I think we're almost at the end of our call. I think we'll have to end soon. I know you have something else that's coming up pretty soon. So maybe we can just share a few more bits and pieces about the program that we've created, and just share a little bit more about how you can learn more about it and get in touch with us. Um, yeah, so I'll just start. Basically, the original idea was to create a space for deck creators to connect, and it's kind of based on the course that I put together a long time ago. I created the first version of my Create and Publish Your Own Cart deck, I think in 2015, and then there have been quite a few different new versions of that
Yeah.
since then, because I still keep learning so much every year. Like every year, I feel like I have to update it again because there's so much new stuff. Um, and so I've been offering this course for more than, I think, almost 9 years now. And while it's been really helpful for a lot of people, I've gotten a lot of good feedback. One thing that I noticed was there's like a missing piece. I've been working with clients one-on-one a lot too in the last 5 years to help them create their decks, and basically guide them through the whole process and manage all the design of the whole creative process and producing the deck and everything. But I felt that there was something in between that was missing that would be really helpful for people on this journey of creating their decks, where we can provide ongoing support. It's more support than I can offer in a DIY course, where maybe people can ask questions and comments. But so here we have the community aspect in it too. You'll have access to the newest version of my original course. Then there's a more in-depth course, more specifically around creating the deck, like designing it. But the original is really about, basically walks you through the whole process that I've perfected over the years, that I'm still perfecting, and that we're all
It's a big
perfecting
process.
on this journey. We always keep learning new things, but basically from visioning to designing the deck to finding the right printing solution. And
You were probably making that right when I was like starting and like wish I had that. And I didn't cross over that, but it's funny how things come for full circle, right?
yeah, well, the first version was really just a short walkthrough, basically explaining how to design your deck in Photoshop, and then I've just
Yeah.
added on a lot, like the whole publishing, sales, and marketing part and all that. And Heath will be providing a course on Kickstarter campaigns specifically. I'm really excited about that. I really want to learn everything I can from you because I feel like there's so much there that's going to be so beneficial for a lot of people, because it really solves the problem of like so many things. We have another video up, a podcast that we did together about half a year ago, where I think I have that on my channel too, that can maybe link down below, where you talk more about the specific benefits of running Kickstarters as well. Yeah, so I'm really
Yeah, I forgot
excited
we did
about
that.
that. And yeah, we'll have a ton of resources that we'll be adding along the way as well. And your business partner, Jason, is in there with us now too. I think he'll have a lot to add too, just in terms of all the e-commerce stuff. And
Yeah, Jason's a
um,
very systems guy. While I can kind of split both directions because I have a huge passion for how things work from that kind of like engineering perspective too, but I'm also like at the heart full creative. What's this? He's very much kind of the behind the scenes. I'm trying to figure out, ads, marketplaces, kind of nerd. And he's really excited about this too because stepping into kind of teaching role is also a way of learning a lot of things. And as we ask questions in that community of like, what topics do we want to hear about? We realize that it's not like there is that kind of conceptualization of, oh, I have this idea and how do I bring it into form? But there's also how do I get this in my hands and then how do I sell it and get it out into the world? And so that's where we come together, you, Jason and I, and can kind of hit a whole array of topics. But then when you add in some of the other like guest experts that we're going to bring in and the specific topic calls that we're going to be doing from things on like maybe it's something very specific, like just the fundamentals of writing or designing your deck. But sometimes maybe it's something very complicated, like setting up, ad campaigns to drive traffic to a Shopify store. Like these are things that we've spent so much money and time learning how to do. And like I said earlier, never my intention to tell you what you should do along in your journey if this is something you're considering, but we're going to show you everything that we do to help make ourselves successful and the stuff that doesn't work and the stuff that does. So you have all the information you could possibly need. That excites me and there's so much already happening in that, like I think about questions that are being asked in there already and we haven't even, we just have a couple early members in there and we haven't even opened the group yet publicly. So
yeah, there's already so much happening in there, and just really excited about all the questions that are being asked. And yeah, so anyway, so you'll have access to all the resources, the courses, but then also the community. I think that's a really big piece where we can all connect, collaborate with each other, make connections with people
yeah.
that we might want to co-create with, learn from each other, and you get full access to us. Basically, you can ask any question you have, and Heath and I and Jason as well will be available to answer questions. So it's yeah, kind of like a little bit like a Facebook group or Slack kind of mix between the two, where we have different channels and topics.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
like
way better than a
questions.
Facebook group, Anna.
It is a lot better. Yeah. So, but
The
anyway, so
platform,
just the idea with threads and you can leave comments and all that.
yeah,
So
it
that's
works
kind
on
of
your
what it
phone,
looks
works on your
like.
desktop. Yeah, it's like if
Exactly.
you know how to use social media, you can use it. And also there's chat rooms, there's threads, kind of like forum style posts and comments. But I love it because everything's contained in one place. Like you have direct messaging between people, you have chat rooms, threads, but then also all the coursework is in there. You don't have to go to an external site to be able to view other information. Like as we build these resources out and add them, and you know how obsessive like we are at making it the best that we can with everything that we do. These resources are going to be awesome, and like just being able to open them directly in there is exciting. And that whole meta, we're working on building out trying to get an index of all these different kind of metaphysical stores around the United States to start based on state, like broken down, access to that, like looking around your area and being able to see all the different stores that could potentially carry your deck if you're interested in like the retail side of it, or the wholesale side of it. It's like those are the things that I wish I had, and obviously stuff that we haven't solved the problems with yet that we're working towards, like distribution, right? Like that whole big distribution thing that's happening in the publishing industry that seems so It seems so closed off unless you're in like this clique. We're going to solve that. Like we're going to figure out some contacts for distribution lines and how to get set up in distribution lines and things like that. So yeah, that will be resources. And there's this unlimited potential. And as people start asking more and more questions, we're going to always be answering those questions, whether it's in your course already, Anna, or the course I'm building, or as a standalone resource, or a live Q&A call that we do. Like we'll record all of them and put them up so that there's always an easy way to access the answers.
Yeah, exactly. And so we'll be doing live Q&A calls, basically group coaching calls every month, and then expert calls every month, or just more topic focused calls. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more that we'll be adding in the future. Um, yeah, and so
Yeah,
we're officially opening the doors now. We already have a few members in there, and right now we have a special offer for founding members. So anyone who wants to join us early, um, at some point this will be a membership program, and you'll get access for a full year at least, and then you have the option to continue on a monthly basis. But for our founding members, we currently have the offer to basically join us for lifetime.
that's my
So
lifetime
if
post.
you join us now, you'll have lifetime access to everything that we already have in there now, and also anything that we'll be adding in the future, which is a really big bonus, I think. Yeah, I don't know if I'm missing anything. We'll have probably a few more goodies, like um, actually private calls with us we're including right now as well. You'll get a private call with me and a private call with Heath and Jason if you're joining us now. And I think there are probably a couple more things that I can't remember right now. But yeah, anyway, so if you're interested in learning more,
Care
I will leave
packages. We're doing
pages.
physical care packages for
Yes.
founding members too, which is pretty cool. With all of our decks and stuff like that. So
Yeah, those are really exciting. So you'll get some of our decks and some other surprise goodies as well.
yeah.
And yeah, so many awesome things. So I'll leave more information in the description down below on how to get in touch with us. Right now, we don't have a landing page up yet, but we have some resources that we can share with you. And so we'll send you all the information about our current offer and way of joining. And I'm really excited. I feel like this is so big. Like this has been coming in for such a long time, and I'm already seeing even just with I don't know, like how many members are we? Do we have like 13 people in there now?
Yeah.
It already feels
We haven't
so
even started.
amazing.
This is like the lesson in marketing in itself, right? Is start before you're ready. And we kept kind of like pushing it back and like, actually, let's just start. And now it's just coming together and it's such an awesome thing. And we know, look, if you're serious about wanting to make a card deck, I think everyone who is knows like there's a tap there, like intuitively. Whether, I mean, it happens probably more if you're like in the Oracle, spiritual, tarot realm of things, but ideas don't have to be contained in that genre, right? And if you know that you have this idea that wants to come into form, there's not going to be a better place that exists right now to come in and learn how to do it and have the momentum of a group to carry it through. So the value of this is, I mean, it's really, we could be charging way more than we are for it, and it feels really good where it's at for us. The exchange of information and energy there, like it's something I would have killed to have when I first tried to start making that first affirmation deck, and I would have gladly joined in. So what we're doing, we're creating something that we wish we had. And I know that Anna and I both separately, but together, are kind of obsessive with the way that we organize, and we want to be the best at what we're doing at all things. So like everyone who's coming into the group, we're doing application processes and really filtering out, because we want everyone who comes in to be one, serious about joining the group, serious about wanting to make your card deck, because that helps the group in whole. Like you come in and you're just like, oh, I don't, I'm not really going to do this, and you just don't interact. It kind of is, it's a downer for the group in itself. So, if it's something that you want to do, and you'll be surrounded by other people who are just as serious as you, and that's what's going to make the community great. There's a lot of things that can make communities fail, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that this is a really tight family style community, and also one where you can work at your own pace, but have the momentum of the community and support around you as you work at that pace. Because I know, and you probably know from making card decks, like every one of them has a different timeline. And it just depends on what your lifestyle is. Do you have family? Do you have kids? Everyone has a different situation. And so this is the thing that feels the best. It feels like the jigsaw is coming into place, and it feels very in flow and good. And so if it's something that feels good for you and you want to make a deck, like this is the place to do it for sure.
So if you want to learn more, then you can follow the link in the description, or you can just reach out to us directly as well, on social
Yeah.
media. And yeah, if we're already in touch in other ways as well. And we'll be happy to share more. And I know you have to go, Heath. I know you have another call in like 5 minutes, so I guess we got to
Yeah,
end
we're
this
good.
call now. But
We'll end at
are there
11:11.
so before we end this call, are there any last minute words you want to share?
Oh, I'm just excited. I really think that the right people will find themselves in this group, and just thank you for obviously showing up and having this conversation with me. And everything that I've learned from you so far has been incredible. And I'm excited to the vision of what this group can become. Even like the thought about doing like group Kickstarter projects, where everyone kind of has a piece in designing one big deck together and launching it. And yeah, just have fun. And if this isn't something that is for you, um, I hope that there was value within this interview to be able to lean more into the excitement and the feel good side of life and follow the stuff that really lights you up. But do it in a smart way, and like using your logical mind sometimes is a great thing. And if anyone tells you they know exactly what the right way is, don't trust them. Like feel into yourself and your intuition, like because they probably don't. And break the rules, but first break the rulers.
Yeah, so thank you so much for getting on this call with me today, Heath, and for co-creating this whole thing that we've been working on. I'm so excited, and yeah, it feels really
Yeah, me
big.
too.
And yeah, so I can't wait to share this call with our audience, and hopefully welcome a lot more members into our community soon.
But thanks so much,
I
Anna.
hope
It's
you
been
have
awesome.
an amazing rest of your day, and then we'll connect again soon.